Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast. Hey there, Canadiens Connection fans. We are going to get you to all of the latest Habs hockey talk that you're here for in just a minute. But while Rick and Michael are getting settled in the studio, I just want to bring you a quick message from our brand new sponsor for the show, Manscaped. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that smooth sack summer is officially upon us. When your man is playing in the summer sun, make sure he's groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends over at Manscaped, he can make this season his smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep his boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Have him join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. With our exclusive offer right here on the show, get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code THPN. It's summertime, and the trimming is easy, right? Hey, the Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything he needs to prepare for that summer bod. And inside the package, you'll get the star of the show, which is the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. And Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts on this package, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed travel bag. So get 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. Hey, it's smooth sack summer, ladies and gentlemen. Get your mans or yourselves on board or get left behind. Now let's get to the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. My name is Michael Spinella, and I'll be your host for the next hour. This is episode 302 of the Canadiens Connection podcast, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, who is also the founder and president of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. How are you doing today? Up bright and early, up late last night. It's been one heck of a time.
And just trying to catch my breath. We just heard Bill Daly kind of lower the gavel, end the draft, and said at the end of the draft, "See you next year at a site and location to be determined." Rather ominous. We don't know where we were assuming this was going to be the last in-person draft. Maybe not. We'll see. But man, what a whirlwind. We're calling this our draft extravaganza show. Official title is Securing Firepower, Montreal's masterstroke with key draft picks. And what a draft for the Montreal Canadiens. There was, and overall in the NHL, there was a few themes here. Size seemed to be a theme in the draft. Trades, there were at least 7 trades by my count on day 2. And wow, the Canadiens made 10 picks. We're going to be getting to that in a minute, but we're going to have everything here for you. But I'm just going to take a minute to get my breath while you let the good folks know what exactly we're going to be covering in this podcast.
Well, pretty much everything. We'll get you up to date on everything Montreal Canadiens in this first segment. We have some roster news. We'll go through the draft pick by pick, and then we have some prospect news in our Rocket Report. And then at the end of the segment, we have plenty of news from around the NHL, and that will lead us directly into segment 2, and that's going to be entitled First Round Success. We talk about how the Montreal Canadiens prevailed in that first round and take a deep dive into the 2 selections they made. And then in segment 3, let's turn it over to our listeners for the Have Your Say segment. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, what are your overall thoughts on the Canadiens' performance at the draft this year? We want to hear from you. And Rick, if you've caught up on your breath there, why don't you let us know how everyone can reach out to us?
Well, why don't you fill up our text line? We've set up a special text line just for our Canadiens Connection listeners. The Rocket Sports text line is 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. That's 585-376-2538. Text us anytime, 24 hours a day. Let us know what's on your mind. If you have a question, if you have a comment, and let us know your name and let us know your location.
And you can give us a follow on all of our social media. Follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can check out our website, CanadiensConnection.fm. And without further ado, let's get directly to that roster news. Plenty went down this past week. And to start, Jeff Gordon says Jesse Ylönen will not receive a qualifying offer. He said that it was a mutual agreement, Jesse Ylönen possibly looking for a fresh start. And honestly, throughout the season, it was pretty obvious that Ylönen just kind of fell out of favor and just did not have many opportunities within that Montreal Canadiens lineup.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Lots of talent there. Didn't get enough opportunities to, or consistently get opportunities to show that talent. So why not let him not qualify him? Let him become a UFA, get a fresh start with a new organization. As you said, he's a good guy, and I want to see the best for him. But interesting, it was in Vegas on Thursday. Jeff Gordon with his media availability, and somebody asked him about RFAs. He said, "Give me a name, I'll tell you yes or no." Just that bluntly. He said, somebody asked Justin Barron, yes. Arbor Xhekaj, yes. Jesse Ylönen, no. Not that I heard. Matthias Norlinder, I don't think anybody asked about him, but so we'll wait to see if we can know what's going to happen as far as a qualifying offer for Norlinder.
And also, we do have some up-and-coming unrestricted free agents. So Arnaud Durando, Brady Keeper, Philippe Maillet, Tanner Pearson, Mitchell Stevens, Colin White, and Chris Weidman, who I believe will not be returning to this organization, right?
Yeah, there's a good number of that list are pending UFAs who are. We've got the free agent frenzy on July 1st. I don't expect to see any of those players back with the Montreal Canadiens.
So on Friday, actually, was the first day of the NHL Draft. You had the first round in the evening, and mid-afternoon, the Montreal Canadiens announced that they made a trade. The Canadiens acquired pick number 21 from the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for first-round pick number 26 this year, second-round pick number 57, and a seventh-round pick 189th overall. So the Montreal Canadiens pay a steep price to move up about 5 spots in that first round.
Yeah, Canadiens overpaid for that 21st overall pick, but I said it last week. They have a large quantity of picks. Why not bundle them together and improve the quality? They did just that, moving from 26 to 21. If you want to know if fair value was gotten, our dear friends at Puckpedia have a draft pick valuation tool. And using their tool, it says that the Montreal Canadiens are minus 0.23 and the LA Kings are plus 0.23. It means that the Kings did better. What does that 0.3 work out to? About a 6th round pick. So the Canadiens paid about a 6th round pick too much in the value that they gave the Kings. Not a big deal when they were after the 21st pick.
Yeah, don't mind that at all. And without further ado, let's get to those Montreal Canadiens picks at the 2024 NHL Draft at the Sphere Las Vegas. So I can't say it just Sphere
the
Las
Sphere,
Vegas.
Yeah.
It just
they get so
the
mad.
Sphere sounds better.
It does sound better. They get so upset. It's not the Sphere, it's Sphere. I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you.
So Montreal, like you said, they made an abundance of picks. That was the only trade they made. So a lot of different players here are welcome to the organization in that first round. 5th overall, Ivan Demidov, right wing out of St. Petersburg and Russia's junior league. This is what we were hoping for. We weren't sure if it would turn out, and we'll take a deep dive into Ivan Demidov in that second segment.
All we're going to leave you with right here is the scouting report that Demidov, and I'll quote, is the singularly most skilled prospect in this year's draft, and it might not even be close. He's a highlight reel player. But he's not just committed to offense. He's a 200-foot committed player and great vision and is able to read the game. He mentions comparing himself to Kaprizov. Others do as well. So we're going to go really deep with this pick and with the first round in our Big Topic segment 2.
And with that second first-round pick, 21st overall, the Montreal Canadiens select Michael Hage, a center playing for the Chicago Steel in the USHL. That's who they traded up to take. And again, we're going to take a full deep dive into Michael Hage in that second segment. I'm going to say this is a good story, and I like the swing here.
Yeah, and this was he had a slow start to the season. You mentioned the USHL. He's a dynamic center and was maybe the most dynamic center in that league, that USHL league. From December, he had 61 points in 38 games. To close the season, he had 31 points in his final 16 games. That's a strong finish, to be sure. His comparables are players like Morgan Frost or Robert Thomas. Again, as part of the first round, we're going to go in depth with this player in our second, including having some audio from both Demidov and Michael Hage in our second segment.
Well, the good news is, Rick, you and I did not have to get up at 8 a.m. Vegas time this morning, as the Montreal Canadiens did not have a pick in the second round. We could sleep in until the third, and in that third round, with the 70th pick overall, Atos Koivu, a center, and yes, that is the son of former Montreal Canadiens captain Saku Koivu. So Atos recorded 16 goals and 31 points across 28 games in Finland's U20 league. Atos Koivu also represented Finland at the under-18 IHF World Under-18s, and just one assist in 5 games. I think the knock on him there is that he just did not perform that well on the world stage.
If Michel Therrien was describing him, he'd be saying he's a player who plays the right way. He's got a really good shot, NHL caliber release. He was a bit of a late bloomer, and so still may be developing. But it's his shot that is mostly so, and also his vision, his ability to think ahead, which made him. You see him around the net, and he gets rebound goals, much like his dad. He's an interesting player, but Canadiens fans, I saw on social media, Canadiens fans went wild when it was announced. He said his dad hugged him and told him how proud he was. He's obviously kind of a legacy in the bloodlines. You're going to have to be patient with this player, but one that's going to cause some excitement if he does make his way to the Montreal. He said he's heard nothing but good things about Montreal, nothing but good things about the Canadiens, nothing but good things about the Bell Center, and he's excited to experience all of that. Before we get to, we've got a couple of clips from him. If you've been listening to the Canadiens Connection for a long time, or even the show prior to Habs 360, we've been doing podcasts since 2012, every Saturday. You may have heard me relay this story and retell this story about my first meeting in person with Atos Koivu, and it was at the IGA on Nuns Island. And I was shopping, and I was looking for, I don't remember what it was. I think it was the peanut butter aisle. It may have been the cereal aisle. I had my cart to the side, and I was looking up, and there's this big bang. Somebody crashes into my cart. The cart careens off of my cart, their cart, and into my hip, right into the side. And I look over, and it's one of those carts that they had, IJ, with a big amusement ride on the front for the kids. It had like an extension. And there's the dad who is dealing with a kid who's crawling all over his head, so he couldn't see where he was going. He's got a little girl in the front. It was Saku Koivu. His daughter was in the front. His son Atos was using him as a jungle gym, crawling all over him, his head. He smashed into my cart, smashed into me, and he couldn't have been more apologetic, Saku Koivu. And that was my first in-person meeting with Atos. I'm sure he would never remember that. He was much too young. But yes, I mean, having a father, a legendary father, it was worth taking a chance on this player for sure.
Absolutely. And great story there. Actually, I don't think I got to hear that one yet, so I appreciated that.
All right.
And I hope Atos has matured a little bit since that moment. But nonetheless, I think we'll get to that audio that we promised. And with this first one, he was asked, "What are you feeling right now?"
Yeah, I mean, unreal feeling right now. I mean, I'm super, super happy. I can't find the words right now to describe what I'm feeling, but extremely happy and excited. And I mean, Montreal as an organization and the city, everything is just unbelievable. So definitely super excited.
When he says the word super, if you don't hear Saku Koivu, then you weren't listening to him. That's a chip off the old block for sure. Yeah,
and if I can't say great English there, I'm sure he's had plenty of time to practice, but definitely not what I was expecting from an Atos Koivu. But of course, with his dad, I think he did a great job there. And we have one more bit of audio to get to, and this one is about what type of player he is.
Yeah, I think I'm a two-way center who can play in both directions responsibly, and I think my main things, my strengths are my skating, my shot, my ability to read the game, and I think a type of player that kind of reminds me of myself is Sebastian Aho, and yeah, I see a lot of same things as same kind of strengths and weaknesses that my dad had. I see those in my game as well, but I think Sebastian Aho is a pretty good comparison for me.
You hear a little bit of noise in there. That was on the Zoom call. Somebody on the call left their mic, or one of the reporters, and said, well, you got a little bit of noise, but you got the gist of what he said. He says he's a two-way responsible center. Who does that sound like? And he compares his game to Sebastian Aho. Not a bad comparison at all. Nick Bobrov happened to say one of the reasons that they chose him, he says, we liked him as a player despite his name. So they didn't just pick him because of the legacy. They didn't just pick, they liked him. He was a late bloomer, which I mentioned, that took off. He grew quickly, and he's getting used to his size. And Nick Bobrov also goes on to say, clearly his dad taught him very well. He has all the pro habits, and takes care of himself. He just needs to grow, and he's just scratching the surface of his talent. And it's a prospect that the Canadiens would be patient for, and said, this is another player who would be comfortable in the pressure environment of a Montreal market. We've heard that before, looking for players that can manage that, and certainly with a dad who has experience, they felt that Atos would be able to thrive in that environment.
So I like the pick. Certainly looking forward to watching his career play out. And we did not have to wait too long before Montreal had their next pick, still in the third round, 78th overall. This was a pick from Washington that was originally from Minnesota, that came over in the Joel Edmondson trade, and they select Logan Sawyer. So a center. He's 18 years old. He's going to be playing for the Brooks Bandits in the AJHL. He tallied 35 goals and 43 points in 59 regular season games. So he's another kind of a project player. He's going to be a little ways off still, but I certainly like Montreal taking a center at that position.
Yeah, for sure. This is a player who has bounced around a bit. Grew up in the GTA, in their minor hockey system, from the Orangeville area, but then found himself at Stansted College. So exposure to that Quebec market. He said that he had French immersion to grade 11, and so he's comfortable, and did say a few words in French. But then has found his way out to the BCHL. Why did he do that? Well, he got an invite from the Erie Otters of the OHL, but he turned that down because he eventually wants to go to the NCAA system, and he's a commit to Providence College in 2025-2026. He said he had a great interview with Montreal on Thursday. Just this guy is oozing positivity off the ice, and when he gets on the ice, he's one of those guys that just has a motor. He's an attacker. He attacks all over the ice, offensively, defensively. He's one of those kind of guys who's a playmaker, a little bit of a physical game. But he's, one of those guys that has the motor that can be described as a disruptor on the ice, either with his stick or crashing the boards, supporting his teammates. This is a fascinating pick.
And we do have some audio from Logan Sawyer, and this is some reaction audio.
It's awesome. Best jersey in the league for sure, best team, so I can't wait to get started. Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking, but just tried to stay as positive as I could, and I got drafted by the best team that could have taken me, so pretty cool. Yeah, I'm more of a skilled forward. I create a lot of chances. I use my hockey IQ really well in my big frame. And yeah, so I'm just an offensive threat. Oh, it's one original six. I don't know. It's just it's a dream come true. I live in Toronto. I've been to Montreal a bunch. It's a beautiful city, and I just can't wait to get out there.
Wow, he's got all the lines. He's very positive, and he's you feel like he's just ready to go. He's ready to go, and just such a positive guy. I really enjoyed hearing him speak. And I think the Canadiens fans, once you start to follow his career, you're gonna love this kind of player.
Yeah, certainly some infectious energy coming from him, and another player I'm really looking forward to seeing. We got to take a little bit of a break in between picks here. Montreal Canadiens have the next pick coming in the fourth round, 102. And this is the first defenseman we see them take. The defenseman is Owen Protz. He's 6'1". He's 190 pounds. He's a blue liner that spent part of the last season here with Sudbury and Brantford in the OHL. He finished the year with 3 goals, 16 assists in 66 games. So certainly taking some size here on what seems to be a pretty good defenseman.
He is solid. I love the scouting quotes about this guy. As you said, played for Sudbury for half the season, then went over to Brantford, had some action in the playoffs. Do you want the short line on him? The most violent player on the ice at any given time.
There you go.
That is Owen Protz. When he steps on the ice, he holds a monopoly on violence, smart violence, from bone-crushing hits, attacking opposition forwards and then slamming them to the ice. Even throws some old-fashioned hip checks. This is interesting. A player from the Bulldogs who has a monopoly on violence. Does that sound like anybody familiar that might be on the Montreal Canadiens at this time? And there is that Canadiens connection with Brantford and formerly with Hamilton Bulldogs. Matt Turek, the GM, former Habs scout there, and there seems to be a pipeline of information. This guy sounds like he's going to be a player that Canadiens fans are going to love. It talks about him having to make some improvements in his puck control, but that he could be a bottom pairing defenseman along the line. That's what he projects to. So Owen Protz, remember that name.
So moving up to the 5th round, 130th overall. That was a pick that came over from the San Jose Sharks. Tyler Thorpe, a right wing, 209 pounds, standing 6'5". Thorpe played for the Vancouver Giants, and he very much is a giant. I can say that much. A large presence on the ice, an impressive shot to his name. He tallied 23 goals, 21 assists in 51 games for the Giants last year, and 30 penalty minutes. So some more size coming, and this right up front on the right wing.
So he goes from the 2022-2023 season, where he played 48 games for the Vancouver Giants and got 6 points, 4 goals and 2 assists, to 44 points in 51 games. Now, he's a D1, first-year overager in the draft. He is a project, but it's the size, as you said, 6'5", 210. He towers on the wing. Skating still in development, playmaking in development. But he parks himself in front of the net, known for his ability to deflect pucks and gets his offense that way. Speaking of size, just a theme overall in the draft I found. There was 225 picks, more than half, 129 players in this year's draft were 6'2" and above. So size was obviously a theme. Now, this guy is coming from the Vancouver Giants. We know another player from we're very familiar with another player from the Vancouver Giants. Size was not an issue there, but feistiness was obviously in Brendan Gallagher. This is going to be another prospect. This one, a long-term project for sure.
So a quick turnaround, 4 picks later, still in the 5th round, 134th overall, Mikus Vatsvanax. And I'm hoping I got that one right. He's a Latvian goaltender. He stands at 6'3", so he certainly hits that height requirement that we've talked about a few times. And certainly a bit of a project. Not a ton of information about this player, but I'm always interested to hear more about a goaltender.
You got it absolutely right. As far as we know, Mikus Vatsvanax, and as you said, a Latvian goaltender, and you know where this is coming from. This is one of those projects from Vincent Riondo. Vinny saw him at the U18s. And he was the guy that Vinny Riondo wanted, one of those guys you pound on the table, and he's going to play in Blainville, much closer to home this year, so we'll have a much better opportunity. And, for the Canadiens Connection during the season, we always feature prospects, so you have no doubt that we'll be talking about many of the players on this list that we're introducing you to here today.
All right, and deep breath here. 3 more to go as Montreal made a ton of picks today. In the 6th round, 166 overall, Ben Merrill standing at 6'4", 194 pounds. This is another forward, and He tallied 18 goals, 19 assists, 25 games this past season in the BCHL. So this is another very big forward, another center that the Montreal Canadiens are taking a flyer on.
Yeah, he's off to the BCHL this upcoming season with the Penticton Vs. He played US Prep hockey this past year with St. Sebastian's. He even got in a couple of games in the USHL with Chicago Steel. An interesting background from the Cape Cod area. I'm going to read you the scouting report on him. His here it is. One of the poorest skaters in the draft. Merrill stumbles, operates with sloppy, unbalanced footwork, and struggles to stop and start efficiently. Kind of sounds like me. Only generating speed if there's a significant runway. Even the lightest physicality sends Merrill to the ice. However, he is an avid user of shoulder shimmies, look-offs, and route-changing attacks. What he has is an elite-level shot, above NHL average in quality. Very little pullback, and the puck just explodes off his blade. The size, the 6'4", 200-pound player, that's where it comes from. We mentioned the BCHL Penticton Vs this year, and then he is committed to Harvard University the year after, 2025-26. Again, long-term project. He's got lots of things to sort out, especially his skating, but he's going to be physical. He's got a great shot. A really, really raw prospect out of the high school prep circuit that the Canadiens are taking a chance on.
So he'll have plenty of time to work on his skating before he gets to this organization. And Rick, I don't think we're used to having 7th-round picks after that Bergevin era, but Montreal had 2 today, 210th overall. This is the other pick coming from Washington in the Joel Edmondson trade, and it is Makar Hanin. So a 6-foot winger coming from Dynamo St. Petersburg last season in the MHL. So not a ton of info here, but 9 goals in 35 games, I believe.
He is another overager. He has some skill. He is a playmaker. At this point in his game, he's a bit of a perimeter player. Nick Bobroff called Hanin Demidov light. Okay. I don't quite know. I guess in terms of being a playmaker, again, a 7th-round pick, worthy of a shot, and trying to develop him to get him to be a Demidov not so light, I guess. And a 7th-round pick, worthy of a shot.
And the final pick of the draft for the Montreal Canadiens, 224th overall. This was the 7th rounder that came over in the Kulak trade from Edmonton, Rasmus Bergquist. So that's the second defenseman that they drafted in this 2024 draft. Bergquist is known to be a solid defender that knows where to position himself and read the game at a rather high level. He's playing over in the Sweden Junior League. Like I said, 6'2", 181 pounds. So I think that's all the players over 6 feet for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, this guy is in a good program, the Junior 20 program, national program with Skellefteå. He had a decent season, looked very good in the playoffs, in 9 games, a +7 there and 3 points. So interesting that, yes, size was an issue here. I don't see a player from the Q. In fact, it was pretty late in the draft before a player from the Q was taken. I think it was the Flyers at pick 59, Spencer Gill, player from Rimouski, and I think that's something that is going to take some review over the summer. I expect that will happen. I was surprised that there were so many goaltenders taken throughout this draft. Not a draft where goaltenders were, had great scouting backgrounds, but lots of goaltenders taken. The Canadiens, I always like seeing them take a goaltender, just to build up that, have a continuity there, and why not take a flyer on one. I think a very, very successful draft for the Montreal Canadiens. And we're going to have more on this on our show next week. The development camp's coming up. Many of these players will be there, and we'll be continuing reporting on these prospects.
And now it's a good time to get to our Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
As we continue our coverage of the NHL 2024 entry draft, one of the things that I think we recommend doing and something we like to do is go back and revisit some earlier episodes, and we've had quite a few draft experts on over the past couple of weeks that have given us a ton of information on different players. So if you are interested in revisiting some of those episodes, I recommend checking out Canadiens Connection episode 302 entitled Who Will the Habs Picked? And that features a very special guest, Sam Cosentino from Sportsnet. Also, episode 300 entitled Unraveling Probable Draft Scenarios for the Montreal Canadiens. That has Michael Agello. Episode 298 entitled Top Picks. Scouting Director Identifies Key Targets of the Montreal Canadiens. That has one of our favorites, Jerome Berube. And you can also check out episode 296 entitled Elite Prospects Scout Ranks Montreal Canadiens Draft Options, and that features Russ Cohen. So you can find a ton of great information on there if there's anything you'd like to know more about the Montreal Canadiens draft picks. And Rick, I think we did a really good job setting up this draft, and honestly, I was pretty happy to have all this information heading into Friday and Saturday.
No, you're absolutely right. This is there's a wealth of information there. We tapped into the best of the draft experts. We had them on the show over the past month, 6 weeks or so. And for those of you who have been with us week after week after week, I should say, our downloads exploded. Canadiens fans are very interested in this draft. Remember, we had Dr. Stephen Morris on, so there was teams, fans of teams who were from other teams who interested in the information on Caden Lindstrom. I think it's just fascinating to go back, and whether you want to see how this all evolved, how opinions evolved, how rankings evolved, especially with there being no real consensus after Celebrini about this draft, or if you're just one of those people that want to go back and say, look how wrong these people were. I think there's a lot of fascinating information there. Thanks to Amy Johnson, thanks to Dr. Stephen Morris, thanks to all of our guests for coming in and spending time with us over the last 4 weeks. And thank you to you. We worked hard on these episodes and a lot of information. And from what the feedback we've heard back, Canadiens fans loved our draft coverage.
And as always, the Montreal Canadiens being a little bit unpredictable. Maybe some people did predict how Friday and Saturday would have gone, but certainly was a little bit off of my radar. And like I said, very happy to looking forward to revisiting some of those older episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking at the AHL, congratulations to the Hershey Bears on winning the Calder Cup. So that's the Washington Capitals affiliate. That is their 13th AHL title, and they win this in the most dramatic fashion, 5-4 in overtime over Coachella Valley. And that's actually Coachella Valley's second appearance in the final after winning last season. So great series overall. And Rick, it sounds like a lot of people were pretty intrigued by this Calder Cup final.
It was a great Calder Cup final. Lots of people tuning in. It was a repeat of the two teams that faced off last year for the Calder Cup, Hershey Bears, Coachella Valley Firebirds. And it's Hershey going back-to-back with Calder Cups. Lots of great talent there. Lots of intrigue. You have Dan Bylsma coaching Coachella Valley, and we know he now will be the head coach in Seattle. So it was a great series, and congratulations to all who participated in that, and particularly the Washington Capitals organization.
A little bit more news from the AHL. The Syracuse Crunch announced that assistant coach Daniel Jacob is no longer with the organization. Now, normally we don't tend to cover AHL assistant coaches and what happens there, but there are some Laval Rocket-sized rumors, I think, going around, and the report being that it was a very mutual agreement between the Crunch and Jacob to terminate his contract.
You're right. We don't usually dwell on assistant coaching positions in the AHL. But when I got this news release from the Syracuse Crunch, Megan Cahill's their communications officer and VP of communications, actually. She's terrific at what she does. I thought, well, that's interesting. It says J.D. Forrest named Syracuse Crunch assistant coach. Tampa Bay Lightning have named J.D. Forrest as Syracuse Crunch assistant coach. Well, we know who's the head coach in Syracuse. Well, that's one Joel Bouchard, who we know from his days with the Laval Rocket. And Joel Bouchard is joined at the hip with Daniel Jacob. Daniel Jacob was Joel Bouchard's assistant coach in Laval and out west, and then when he landed in Syracuse, Joel Bouchard. Let's be honest, Joel Bouchard is he's a great communicator. He's a spokesmodel. Daniel Jacob is the brains behind the operation, and working together they make up a head coach. And the news release says assistant coach Daniel Jacob and the Tampa Bay Lightning have mutually parted. That's it. So why would that be? Curious, very curious. And of course, the Montreal Canadiens are searching for a head coach for the Laval Rocket. They're also, with J.F. Houle leaving rather suddenly, as we talked about last week, but there's also an assistant coaching position available. Kelly Buchberger went to Alberta to be a head coach of the new expansion team in the Alberta Junior Leagues. So we're going to keep an eye on this because there's a bit of smoke here, and we'll see if it turns into fire.
You can find all our content about Canadiens prospects at our Rocket Sports YouTube account, InsideTheCanadiens.com. And now it's time to get to some hockey news. And Rick, you said it best just beforehand. Feels like ages ago that this happened with everything that went down this week, but big congratulations goes out to the Florida Panthers on winning their first Stanley Cup. Honestly, that Game 7 was not my favorite game to watch. If anything, I thought it was a little bit of a drag to get through, but Florida was definitely the better team in that one. Certainly did a great job shutting down that Edmonton offense. Crazy series overall, with Florida winning the first 3 games, Edmonton storming back and winning the next 3 to take it to Game 7. And of course, it was just a 1-goal, low-event game to end this one. What
a clinic by the Florida Panthers in that game. Their team, Bill Zito, remade their team from, an offensive powerhouse into a team that emphasized defense first, bringing in Paul Maurice, and it was worth it just for that game alone. Of course, they had a great regular season as well. The better team in the series won. the more balanced team, and with the better coaching and so on and so on. I'm happy for the Florida Panthers. Paul Maurice is a tremendous coach. I saw somewhere he's won, I think it's 5 Game 7s, deciding Game 7s. Second only. Yeah, we'll check that fact, but a very good coach, and I'm happy also for Sylvain Lefebvre. Got a lot of criticism when he was in Montreal, but he's obviously a Stanley Cup winner, second time over player and coach now, and he was a tremendous teacher when he was part of Laval and fully deserving of being a winner now with Florida. All of that very well. I thought, I don't know what you think. We didn't talk about this, but the Conn Smythe winner, Connor McDavid, and okay, I understand, and he set an assist record, points record, whatever he said. But Bobrovsky, and the talking about his record in games and second only to Patrick Roy and Brodeur and all that. I thought that was curious. And then the other part was he didn't come out and received some criticism for that. And it's not often, third or fourth time that the Conn Smythe winner comes from the losing team. And people were making the comparisons to Giguère, J.S. Giguère, who had the class to come out. I don't know. What did you feel about that?
I think since the title is for playoff MVP, Connor McDavid kind of was that. It was a great individual performance by him, and the Edmonton Oilers would not have gotten nearly as far without him. So it's a bit peculiar, of course, that the winner of that award goes to the losing team, but I do think that was the right decision. For me, Bobrovsky, he could have been in the discussion for sure, certainly just received some votes, but through, I guess, games 4, 5, and 6 in this series, I didn't think he fared very well and kind of played himself out of that discussion. Other than that, I think Barkov, too, could have been a winner of this award, but I have no gripes with Connor McDavid getting this, and I think, if anything, it was kind of awkward that the NHL put him in a position where people would be talking about him not going out to receive that award. I mean, I feel like if he did go out, maybe there would be some discussion of like, oh, well, he's an individual guy. He's not a team player. Look at him accepting this individual award after losing in the Stanley Cup final. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe he was just upset. I just think that the NHL could have planned for that a little bit better.
Yeah.
All they had to do is send someone to the Edmonton Oilers locker room after the game and be like, all right, does Connor McDavid want to come out? Yes or no? If he doesn't want to come out, just breeze by it. Gary Bettman can even say that he's accepting this award on his behalf. I don't care. But, you don't have to make the awkward silence and the big, oh, will he, won't he moment. And, of course, kind of awkward, too, for all those Florida Panthers waiting around to be like, all right, just give us the cup. Like, obviously, he's not here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Bobrovsky, you're right. He wasn't himself in those middle games, but then Connor McDavid disappeared for games 6 and 7. So a little bit 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Anyway, you know what we mean, and maybe it got more attention than it really deserved. For
sure, and. Talking about congratulations, we have a little bit more congratulations to hand out, as this past week the Hockey Hall of Fame announced their inductees for 2024, and that includes one Shea Weber. So he's part of that 2024 class. I think big congrats to Shea Weber. He's certainly had a great career. If I'm being honest, I'm surprised that he got in so fast compared to other players, but I'm not going to pretend like I understand how this whole process works. I have no idea what they do at the Hockey Hall of Fame, if I'm honest. And if anything, Shea Weber is certainly one of the best defensemen of his generation, so I have no gripes with this whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm happy for Shea Weber. He gave everything. He gave everything to try and will a cup to the Montreal Canadiens, as did Carey Price. That run ended, that Stanley Cup run ended his career, physically unable to continue. They talked about how early he had to arrive at the rink before those Stanley Cup playoff games in 2021, and just to get him ready to go. And he was interviewed by TVA Sport, and he talked about after that series, he couldn't walk, he couldn't get out of bed, he couldn't lift his kids, he couldn't for months. It was, and in addition to the whole mental load that placed, and he in fact came out and said that he was sorry for kind of disappearing for a bit. Where's the quote? "To be honest, I knew halfway through the season that it would be my last season. When I met with the doctors at the end of the season, they confirmed how I was feeling. I think it was worse 2 weeks after the end of the series because the adrenaline had died down. And mentally, I wasn't going well, and physically either. Couldn't play anymore, and I was frustrated." So all of that, he gave everything he had for the Montreal Canadiens. I was a bit surprised by he will be when inducted the 21st Montreal Canadiens captain in the Hockey Hall of Fame. That's true, and yeah, when you think about it, Toe Blake and Maurice Richard, Jean Beliveau, Henri Richard, Yvon Cornway, Serge Savard, Bob Gainey, Chris Chelios, Pierre Turgeon, Guy Carbon. The Canadiens have tons of captains. In fact, there are more captains in the Hall of Fame than not. Only 10 captains of the Canadiens have not made it to the Hockey Hall of Fame. And Weber was the 30th captain in franchise history. He finished his playing career with 1,038 games, recorded 589 points, 224 goals, and 365 assists, 2 Olympic gold medals, and a world championship for Canada. Tremendous. I'm fully support him getting into the Hall.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we also had the NHL awards going down this past week. It seemed like a lot of these awards were announced in the weeks leading up to this. And to be honest, the NHL awards kind of fell off of my radar. But the last few awards that did end up being handed out at this event, the Calder Trophy, that goes to Connor Bedard, and I think he won this before the season really even started. Do you agree with this one, Rick?
Yeah, I agree. I picked Bedard, and you're right. It was his award to lose. I know when he was injured, some people were talking about Brock Faber, who turned up at Brock Faber looked like a guy from the mailroom. At the awards with the glasses and the whole bit. That aside, Connor Bedard, when he came back from his injury, he earned that award, and he was my pick for the Calder.
And for the Norris Trophy, it goes to Quinn Hughes. I think this is a great decision. This was the right decision. If you asked me at the beginning of the year, I don't think I had Quinn Hughes on my radar for this, but nonetheless, he really turned things up and took things to another level. Yeah,
and what a speech he made at the awards, and a lot of players who win awards go up and they give a token comment at the beginning to their fellow nominees. Quinn Hughes waited till the end to talk about Roman Josi and Cale Makar, and said something personal about each of them. I thought it was incredibly classy, and of course he talked about his family, his brothers, and whatnot. What a great pick, and what a great speech.
And for the Vezina Trophy, the top goaltender, that goes to one Connor Hellebuyck. And again, this is the correct decision. Connor Hellebuyck willed this Winnipeg Jets team to the playoffs. He was fantastic. At the beginning of the season, though, definitely was not my pick. But I think as the season transpired, absolutely the correct decision.
Hands down, the best goaltender in the regular season, Connor Hellebuyck. Not even close. Playoffs, he struggled, but this award is for the regular season, and he was a deserving selection here.
And the winner of both the Hart Trophy and the Lindsay Award, Nathan MacKinnon. Another great decision here. I think Nathan MacKinnon exemplifies a lot of the qualities that both of these awards search out to be. So another good decision. So I think they got most of these awards right this year.
I think so. And this is about time, overdue for Nathan MacKinnon maybe to win the Hart, fully deserved there.
And what did you think about the awards overall? I personally didn't end up watching them. I've heard some not great reviews. Overall, I think the NHL kind of took an L when they promoted this because, like I said, this wasn't on my radar, and I don't think I heard anything about it until the day after.
They kind of undercut themselves, I think. They were trying something very different in that they limited the awards to a 1-hour show. They announced most of the awards well ahead of time to cut down on the ceremony because it's not a well-watched event. They held it at the brand new Fontainebleau. Many people are familiar with the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami. This one's in Vegas. Nice venue. But it was a clunky show, and I've never, ever seen so much criticism for a host. I don't know who he was. He was awful. He was an impressionist of sorts, but none of the impressions really landed. And him interviewing Nathan MacKinnon or Kucherov, they were not impressed at all with him and his antics. Again, the NHL struggles. I think the NHL struggles every year with putting on an all-star weekend, an all-star game, and with the award show, and they sure didn't get it right this year.
That's for sure. The Four Nations Face-Off had a bit of an announcement this past week. We know that Montreal will be co-hosting this event with Boston next year, and each team announced the first 6 players on their roster. So for Team Canada, the dream has finally come true. You have Crosby, McDavid, and McKinnon on the same team. And for Team USA, Eichel, Matthews, Quinn Hughes. So lots of good lineups. I think no surprises there. Just the first 6 players, like I said, but I'm actually starting to get intrigued by this event.
Yeah, those 6 players for Canada. We'll name 5. We won't name the other one from Boston. But you're right, Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid. That's pretty excited. The question mark for Canada is going to be in goal. Who is going to play goal for Canada, and how are they going to fare? Usually a strength for Canada, and I thought it was interesting that Sidney Crosby said, quote, "Goaltending obviously is one position that's always going to be under the microscope for any team, but especially with it being Canada, and especially with Carey having been there, Carey Price having been there previously. Carey's a guy that's not easily replaceable." I thought that was interesting that's on his mind. Goaltending is going to be an issue, and they don't have Carey Price to rely on. Fascinating at the press conference.
Absolutely. Some good news for the Philadelphia Flyers here, as SKA has released Matvei Michkov from the remaining 2 years of his contract on compassionate grounds. So Michkov is expected to join Philadelphia in July. And when all is said and done, that draft pick works out great for the Flyers. They're getting him a lot earlier than they expected. I guess his contract in the KHL wasn't really much to worry about here, so that all works out. And what do you think Habs fans think about this?
Well, it's funny because I think there were more Habs fans talking about this than Flyers fans. Online anyway. And again, a missed opportunity is the way it was framed by Canadiens fans. My feeling is that a lot of that's going to be even when Michkov now. There's going to be a little grumbling if he makes it into the lineup in the fall for the Flyers. They're going to be a little less with the Canadiens saying, "Yeah, but we got our guy. We got our guy at this draft."
A big trade went down this past week, and this went down on the same day as Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, just to overshadow it a little bit, as the Ottawa Senators acquire Linus Ullmark from the Boston Bruins in exchange for a first-round pick this year. That was the 25th overall. Joonas Korpisalo with a 25% retained, and RFA Mark Kastelik. So I think good move by Ottawa, simply getting Korpisalo off the books here, and in the process bringing in the Vezina winner from last season. That was certainly their biggest area of need, was goaltending. For Boston, a little bit of a risk here taking Korpisalo, but if he's going to have a lesser role as a backup behind Jeremy Swayman, that might work out for them. Mark Kastelik, he's built like a Bruin. He's big and mean, but I think in Ottawa, often inconsistent and kind of lazy. And of course, that 25th pick was Boston's originally. They traded it to Detroit in the Bertuzzi trade, and then Detroit traded it to Ottawa in the DeBrincat trade. So that pick went full circle and returns to Boston. They made their selection on Friday night, and I think Ottawa here gets the best player in this trade.
And who did the Bruins pick?
I think one of your I want to hear you say this, Rick, since you're setting it up.
It was a heartbreaker. I was one of the only ones talking about him, Dean Letourneau from St. Andrews College, and I was hoping the Canadiens might take a flyer on him, a project pick. Love you, Dean, but you're dead to me forever now that you're a Bruins pick. Yeah, I had high hopes for that guy.
And to end this segment, as tradition, let's go talk about that Arizona franchise. So Arizona State Land Department has canceled a June 27th land auction, and Alex Morello backs out of the Arizona Coyotes ownership. So I think the NHL did a good job in calling Alex Morello's bluff here, essentially, as he did have an opportunity to buy land and build an arena if he wanted the franchise there. And of course, he was not that interested. So cool, goodbye, and don't let the door hit you on the way out. Time to focus on that Utah team. Shame
on Gary Bettman for propping up that lame franchise for so many years. That's all I'll say.
Yes, absolutely. So coming up, we'll hear a brand new message from our sponsors, DraftKings, and then we'll get to our big topic segment, Canadiens' first round flourish. This is Canadiens Connection Podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Hey, listen, just because the Stanley Cup just got awarded does not mean that now is not the best time to sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook if you haven't done so already, because you are going to want to be set to bet all the action on the ice once the season opens again in the fall. Now is the best time to get set up to do that. And hey, there are tons of great sports that you can be placing bets on with DraftKings Sportsbook all summer long, and kind of learn your way around the app and get comfortable and have a great time while you're doing it. So hey, download the app now and use code THPN, and new customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023. All rights reserved.
Welcome back to the Canadiens Connection Podcast, right here on Rocket Sports Radio. My name is Michael Spinella. You can find me on Twitter at the Spinella, and with me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Rocket Sports. And also make sure that you are following this podcast, The Canadiens Connection, at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plus, you can check out the website, canadiensconnection.fm. And just a little reminder here to make sure you tap that subscribe button on the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on your favorite podcasting app so that you don't miss a single one of our episodes. And as it is draft weekend, the first round of the 2024 NHL Draft was held at Sphere in Las Vegas on Friday night, with more than 14,200 on hand to witness the spectacular show. As a lottery team, ultimately picking at number 5, it was critical for the Montreal Canadiens to add a high-end offensive talent and to impress Habs fans who have been a little bit underwhelmed on draft day in 2023 and 2022, taking Slavkovsky and Reinbacher. What do you think, Rick?
Warming up a little bit to that 2022 pick now, but yes, they were a little underwhelmed on draft day. We know that prospect rankings, we've seen mock drafts, they've been all over the map the last few weeks. Well, we heard and we said over and over again, there was no consensus after Celebrini. After Celebrini, it was unclear what teams were going to do, and that made it very uncertain for what the Canadiens were going to do. So how did they plan? Well, there was a little deception, and we'll explain that in a minute. They had some good intel about what other teams were going to do. And I would say they had a healthy dose of good fortune in the draft. The first part of the draft, the first 5 picks, played out absolutely to plan for the Montreal Canadiens.
And Habs fans seem universally thrilled with the picks and kind of impatient to see each of these players in the old CH playing for the Montreal Canadiens. So let's kind of set the tone here and take a look at that first round of the draft. Looking from a Habs perspective, we've talked about some mock drafts on this show leading up to this draft, and it was kind of interesting that a few coming from The Athletic did have Ivan Demidov slipping to 5, but I think you and I, Rick, kept saying, you know what, if we're lucky, that will happen. There's no way this guy's going to slip all the way to 5, right? Well, let's see what happened. Number 1, I think Macklin Celebrini was no surprise, right?
No surprise at all. I think, it was said he was the first player in NHL history to win the Hobey Baker Award and go first overall at the NHL Draft, which was a bit of a surprise to me. And I think the other part of that was that U.S. college players, it was the first time that U.S. college players went 1-2 in the draft. And that leads us into who appeared in the second pick.
Yeah, so you started hearing, like, leading up to the draft that the Chicago Blackhawks might have interest in Artem Levshunov, but you and I, Rick, talked a little bit about how do you pass up on an opportunity to have Bedard and Demidov on the same line, right? But, of course, Chicago started leaning towards the right shot defenseman. That's who they went with at number 2. Wasn't a huge surprise, but if you're a Habs fan, you look at that and you think, okay, so Demidov is still on the board here. That's a player that I'm kind of interested in. There's also Caden Lindstrom still available. How's this going to go? And number 3, with the curveball of the draft, the Anaheim Ducks the past couple years have actually been kind of kooky with their picks and not really going with consensus, maybe going against the grain a little bit. You remember last year at the draft with Fantilli projected to go number 2, and the Anaheim Ducks went ahead and picked Leo Carlsson, which was a big surprise. So number 3, they picked Beckett Seneca. I think that was a little bit off the board for most people, and that he's a really good right wing. I think it's still a good player. We might not be talking about this player in a few years going number 3 if he pans out, but nonetheless, you still see an opportunity for the Montreal Canadiens to get one of Lindstrom or Demidov. Both of those are going to be on the board at number 4, and one of them at least available at number 5 for the Canadiens. And with the Columbus Blue Jackets pick at number 4, no surprise as they pick Caden Lindstrom, the big center. So now the Blue Jackets down the middle, Fantilli and Lindstrom. That's going to look very good. And will Montreal take the gift that was given to them?
The way this played out was just fascinating. And you said that, Anaheim is very unpredictable. Pat Verbeek is just, I think no one can figure out where his mind's at or where his group of scouts are at. The GM of Anaheim, as far as the shock for Beckett Seneca, no one was more shocked than Beckett Seneca. You saw his mom said, "Oh my God," and he said, "Oh my God," and then he said, "What the," a couple of times, and or "Holy F," he said. You could see him mouth that. He was stunned, absolutely stunned that he was taken third overall. But that was, as you said, that just cemented what was going to happen next. We knew Columbus wanted Lindstrom and was really high on Lindstrom. And so that left Demidov just falling into the laps of the Montreal Canadiens.
And in typical Montreal fashion, they had to build up the anxiety. They had to milk the moment there, inviting one Celine Dion out of the back to make the announcement for this pick. Certainly, she took her time with it. She the way this was all presented, I thought she walked out onto the floor like it was a WWE match and went up on stage, said hello to everyone, even gave Gary Bettman a nice big hug. And the way she went out and announced this pick too, she could have not said it any slower, and a big breath right before she says Ivan Demidov too. And Montreal Canadiens fans have to be super happy about this, as this is a player that I think is regarded as probably the second best forward by most. Is that correct?
Well, and many of the analysts said the most skilled forward. With Celebrini being the best overall kind of player, but Demidov being the most skilled player. The whole theater of it, though, it was like a dramatic reading for Celine Dion when she was reading the name. And there was a number of special guests in those first few picks. Joe Thornton came out to do the Celebrini pick. Connor Bedard came out to do the Chicago pick. And non-hockey, I guess Celine Dion was the first to come out. Michael Buffer later for the Flyers, the Let's Get It Ready to Rumble guy. But great theater, and particularly, I guess, with being in Vegas, somewhere she's very familiar with, it added to the drama. And I thought it was interesting later when asked, you don't know what he's seen, what he knows. Demidov was asked, do you even know Celine Dion? He said, oh, yeah. He said, I saw the Titanic. I think that Canadiens fans were absolutely thrilled with the pick. And the Canadiens organization as well, that it all played out to their first option, their first plan to get the player that they wanted, the dynamic, skilled player that they wanted.
Yeah, and just talking a little bit more in general about how this first round played out, lots of talk about all the good defensemen. Surprised to see only one of them go in the top 5 there. And right after Montreal, the Utah Hockey Club make their first ever selection as a franchise. And I think they did fairly well picking T.J. Ginla. If T.J. Ginla is anything like his father, that's a good way to start off the franchise. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot is made of those bloodlines, and sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see, but a pick that was very meaningful for the Utah Hockey Club.
And it took a little while to get a string of defensemen going. Of course, at number 7, Ottawa did Ottawa things and went probably a little bit off the board, getting Carter Yakemchuk, right shot D, ahead of some of the other good defensemen that were projected to go in that top 10. But it really didn't start until pick 9 with the Calgary Flames taking Zane Parekh. That was another right shot defenseman there. And then it was after that you saw the Devils go with Anton Saleyev. I think that's going to be a good pick for New Jersey.
Yeah.
Number 11, San Jose getting Sam Dickinson in that spot too. Phenomenal. And Minnesota trading up one spot to take Zeev Buyum. And leading up to this draft, I will say too, there was some talk about Anaheim being very high on Zeev Buyum and potentially looking in that direction at pick number 3. So interesting to see him fall out of that top 10.
Minnesota to be able to trade up, and it didn't cost them a whole lot to trade with Philadelphia. To get Buyum at 12, that's unbelievable. And Buyum played at Shattuck, so there's some Minnesota connections there already. For the San Jose Sharks to come away from the draft with both Celebrini and Sam Dickinson from London, that's tremendous as well. And Calgary, I think, did well with Zane Parekh. A lot of teams, of course, were focused on the Canadiens, but Seattle even needing offense and taking an offensive player like Berkeley Catton. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
For sure. And Montreal had a second pick in that first round. Earlier in the day, before the draft even happened, they actually traded up a few picks. So trading with Los Angeles, Montreal traded the 26th overall, a second rounder, and a 7th rounder from this year in exchange for the 21st. And you kind of look at who's available in that spot. Still lots of good players leading up to it. A little bit disappointed that one pick before 21 it was Cole Eiserman being selected by the Islanders. And Rick, what did you think about this 21 overall pick as Montreal goes with Michael Hage?
Yeah, I think that, as we said in the first segment, the Canadiens may have overpaid for moving up those 5 places and with Los Angeles. But why not, as we've been arguing, why not use your quantity of picks to better your quality? And they said that Hage was the guy that they were looking for. But you got to think that it was somebody spotted an Eiserman jersey, Canadian shirt on the table, and it was put under the table. But you had to know that Lou Lamoriello was going to take him, and if the Canadiens wanted him, they were going to have to move up a little bit more. And Kent Hughes said that they tried to move up again from 21 a little earlier, so maybe that was their goal overall. But they seem to be happy with the player that they got. And we'll talk about his scouting profile, but in particular, they're pretty happy that, in terms of many reporters, got a player who speaks impeccable French.
Yeah, and has some ties to Montreal. Mm-hmm. I believe he's got family on Nuns Island and some other family on Montreal as well. So you can see the connections there. I guess paraphrasing Ken Hughes a little bit, Michael Hage was the player that they were targeting that had ranked much higher, but also they were prepared for all sorts of other scenarios. Yeah. Something like that, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
So this was not really a consensus draft. You saw lists were all over the place. Mock drafts were all over the place. Let's take a look at what our Rocket Sports team members were predicting for that first round, in particular that 5th overall pick.
Sure. I think, I think it's fascinating. We asked our Rocket Sports colleagues on our internal Slack group, what do you think? What do you think's going to happen in this draft? And what was fascinating is the variety of responses we got, and that was kind of really telling about the character of this draft and the fact that there was really no consensus.
Absolutely. So our own Mike Raschel said Lindstrom. Amy Johnson went with Lev Shunov. Dr. Stephen Morris went with Demidov. I went with Seneca because I felt like the Montreal Canadiens would be very unpredictable. Who did you go with? I
went with Demidov, and I think that I had said that I thought that Demidov was at the top of their list, that they would take him if he was available. I wasn't 100% sure, but as as the draft week went on, it started to be clear how things were going to play out. And what was the clincher for me was Jeff Gorton's interview at the draft on Thursday. When he was asked about Demidov and the interview and the meeting they had, he wanted no part of the question. He said, "Oh, his English was impressive," but he wanted to get away from that question, and so that signaled to me. I saw online many people interpreted that as oh, they're not interested in Demidov. Don't worry, folks, we're not getting Demidov. That was all over Twitter. But to me, it said exactly the opposite. They didn't want to signal that he was their top candidate, and that's as it turned out, that was the case.
So lots of smoke and mirrors, and I think some good intel for the Montreal Canadiens. Good on them to stay put at number 5 and select the very talented forward. And with that, let's start talking about this player. Who are we getting here? Well, last season he played with St. Petersburg SKA Junior. In 30 games, put up 60 points. I mean, the numbers look good for sure. This was something that I think there were a lot of different comparables, at least according to The Athletic. The comparable they put out is Lucas Raymond, which I like to see. I think that's a very talented offensive player. Puck skills are elite with this guy. So I think with Montreal, this could be the steal of the draft. And of course, The Athletic giving them a B+ on this one.
Yeah, Jerome Berube, who we had from Hockey Prospect, who we had on our pre-draft lineup, he said that the best hands of any player in the draft, and many of the scouts were saying probably the most skilled player. And not only his hands are elite, but his ability to go one-on-one, absolutely elite, very creative player. And I think one of the things that is kind of a knock on Russian players is their play away from the puck, and that's not the case with this player. He plays a mature game. He plays a two-way game. He's flashy, he's dynamic, but he has really good work ethic, and I thought that was particularly interesting. Listen, he's been playing in the MHL, the Russian Junior League. Is he too good for that league? Yeah, of course he is. He's been MVP of that league twice. It's easy for him, and he could develop a kind of a lazy player. He's not that way at all. Very competitive, especially away from the puck. You're going to hear that a knock on him is his skating. It's average. It hasn't been developed. He said in the press conference he needs to work on his explosiveness, and I'm sure that he will. I think what we're going to have to watch here is what happens to him next year. Where is he going to play? Is he going to play in the KHL? And even if he does play in the KHL, how is he going to be used? How many minutes is he going to get? Is he going to get power play time? Is he going to get top line minutes? Because he's only got one more year on his contract, and the team knows that he's headed for the NHL, and that's his goal and priority. We've seen how players like that are treated. Anyway, I think Corey Pronman, puck skills are elite. Hockey sense, way above average. You mentioned the comparable Lucas Raymond. I think this is he's a playmaker. He said himself he is a playmaker. But I think that he can. And the other thing, he's not a perimeter player. He's a player who likes to get inside. I think his offense, his goal scoring can be that's an underdeveloped area of his game that we could see come out as he continues to develop. This is the player that the Montreal Canadiens fans have been salivating over when his name came up, and it's the kind of player that the organization has not had for decades, I'll say.
And you talk about he's a player that's not on the perimeter. I think if you watch these last playoffs, that's going to be very, very important going forward, getting players that aren't perimeter players, guys that are willing to get into the thick of it. And for those that are paying attention, this is a player currently listed at 6 feet, 192 pounds, probably still growing a little bit. So I like the size there. I like, too, that right winger, that's certainly a position that the Montreal Canadiens can use as well, so the fit makes a lot of sense. I think something that came up here, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like Demidov currently does not have a Canadian visa. It doesn't seem like he'll attend camp. I'm not super worried about that at the moment. As you mentioned, he'll likely be remaining in Russia for the next season, but definitely something that's worth mentioning, at least.
Come on, Jeff Molson, use your political connections. You got Celine Dion to make the pick. Now let's get Demidov to the development camp. You're right. He doesn't have a Canadian, just a U.S. visa at this point. No Canadian visas. So that's unfortunate that as it stands now, he won't be at development camp.
And certainly over the last few hours, at least, watching some of his interviews, I'm starting to like his personality. So if it's all right with you, I think it's a good time to get to some Ivan Demidov audio, and let's hear him talk about wearing that Montreal Canadiens jersey.
I'm pretty happy to be Habs. Yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah, you know, and I think it's look good, you know, and Habs fan. You know. I know about your love about me, yeah, and it's unbelievable. I'm pretty like it, yeah.
So we should say that he has been learning English for the past year and a half, made remarkable progress. When at the mini combine in Florida, there was only one time that he used a translator, didn't use a translator when speaking to the Montreal media. And I thought it was interesting that you know, he talked about the Canadiens franchise and their success, and he mentioned that they're an original six team. But in this clip we just played, he's also aware that he knows how much Canadiens fans love him already, and he's ready to return it. The smile on his face throughout the press conference was just absolutely infectious.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing very well in English, I might say. Only a year and a half. That's super impressive, especially for a player coming out of Russia. Very different language there. Let's keep it rolling with a little bit more Ivan Demidov audio. And then this one, he's going to talk about his dream to play in the NHL.
Yeah, you know, it's unbelievable moment. You know, I think from childhood, all players dreaming about it. Yeah, and now dreams come true, you know. And in an unbelievable city like Montreal, it's crazy, you know.
Dreams come true. He's even got that phrase down. He was asked if he had a feeling that the Canadiens might pick him, and he said that if he was available at 5, he had a pretty good idea that the Canadiens might choose him. And he said on Thursday night before he went to sleep, he thought, I think this team's going to pick me, which was fascinating.
Yeah, so love that too, and you're right. He definitely has that cliche nailed down. The next one, he's talking about his meeting with Gordon and Kent Hughes.
Pretty good. Yeah, I'm like it. Yeah, the stuff. You know, today I meet with Martin St. Louis. Yeah, and it's unbelievable. You know, people like Martin St. Louis, like Vicente Cavalier. You know, it's like I playing in NHL 07. from these guys, you know. And then now I shake hands, yeah, and it's a cool.
So he said there, yes, he enjoyed the meeting with Gorton and Hughes, but he also met Marty St. Louis and Vinny LeCavalier, and he said, it's unbelievable. Here I am shaking these guys' hands, and I played as them when I was playing NHL 07, which is, I really like that.
Yeah, I love that quote too. I love hearing about players playing those video games and some of their idols and whatnot, so that's certainly a special moment. The last piece of audio coming from Ivan Demidov. He's talking about playing in a high-pressure market.
I think, it's a good, I think, because it's talk about the fans really loved the hockey. And, I'm too love hockey, and that's why it's not a problem for me. Yeah.
Fans love hockey. They're passionate about hockey. I love hockey. I'm passionate about hockey. It's a perfect match. Why not? So that's why he has a really good attitude and an understanding, I think, of the market that he has been drafted into. They asked him who he'd like to play with, and he mentioned Caulfield, he mentioned Suzuki, he mentioned Slavkovsky. He said, but we have to develop chemistry. We have to see where the chemistry is. Again, really an aware kind of player. He talked about, as I said, the kinds of things he needs to work on, being more explosive in his skating, developing more strength because he likes to play inside. The other thing he mentioned is that he was in touch with Nick Bobroff and talked to him throughout his season, that Bobroff was there regularly. So the Canadiens, and Hughes mentioned this, they had interest in this player from a year ago. And maybe that explains somewhat why they passed on Michkov. It doesn't explain why they passed on Ryan Leonard, but Hughes said they didn't need too many similar players. They were avoiding duplication, I think was the way he put it, in his lineup. The only other thing I'll mention from that interview that I found fascinating is he said that his role model in sports is Kobe Bryant. I thought that was great, and the Mamba mindset. And he said, my first English phrase that I learned was killer instinct, and that was from Kobe Bryant. And he related that to being a game breaker and a player who loves to score game-winning goals and make a difference. So I thought that was fascinating. This is a guy who really not only can play the game and has the tools on the ice, the skill, but this is a guy that thinks the game well.
Yeah, I love his energy. I love the way he thinks. And on a little video I saw on Twitter this morning on the Habs account there, they have Demidov filling out a little paper. It's a fill in the blank. It says, what happens in Vegas, and what does Demidov write? Well, he writes miracles. So what happens in Vegas? Miracles. So
nice.
Love that from him. Infectious energy too, no?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. He had the reporters just hanging on his every word, and just you could feel the excitement, his excitement, and that certainly absolutely excited the Canadiens fans, some who were there and most who were online and watching this on TV.
For sure. And we talked about how the Montreal Canadiens in this first round had a second pick that they moved up. They paid quite a bit to move up from 26 to 21. That's 5 spots. And they went with one Michael Hage, center from Chicago Steel. Currently 6'1", 190 pounds, so good size. Definitely the makeup of a center, that's for sure. And another pretty interesting personality as well. He'll be playing in the USHL, or sorry, he played in the USHL this past season, 75 points in 54 games. So again, on paper, seems to look good. Some knocks against him seem to be in regards to his consistency. That was mentioned by many of the scouts. Also,
his work ethic, his compete level has been an issue, and the fact that, for the most part, he's been a perimeter player. Now he's going from the USHL, where he's able to do that. Played for the Chicago Steel, 75 points in 54 games. He'll be in 2025-26, as far as I know, unless that's changed, at the University of Michigan. Really good program in the NCAA. So those are things that can be worked on there, and making sure that he becomes a much more engaged player. Chris Peters from Flow Hockey says this is a middle six kind of player. Talked about his compete waned at times. One of the marks against him, and Jerome Berube says, talks about his hockey sense and his playmaking skills were inconsistent. His compete level is an issue. Jerome says he's another player we feel fits the boom bust category. So a little less certain on him, although the Montreal Canadiens were very high on this player. There's a lot to like about him. His personal story: he grew up as a Montreal Canadiens fan. His dad tragically passed away in an accident in the past year or so, and Michael said he pushed me really hard. He believed in me. I wish he was here to see the draft. Hope he's watching. Those kinds of things. A personal story is fantastic, and just character building. The other part of it is that he was, the year before last, he was out with a right shoulder injury, a dislocation. We know a little bit about that, and as such, he won the 2024 E.J. McGuire Award of Excellence, which is given to the NHL Draft prospect who best exemplifies commitment to excellence through strength of character, competitiveness, and athleticism. So all of this, his coach said he has size, he has speed, his skating, his skill, his shot. All of that. So this is a player that's a little bit tougher to project what's going to happen. But I think the Canadiens really wanted another high-end skill player to add to Demidov. That's a pretty good, moving up to get that player. Sorry, Mike Raschel, they didn't get Cole Eiserman. I was hoping to, but tremendous first round draft haul for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, I like the boom or bust here. I don't mind this as a big swing by the Montreal Canadiens at this point in the draft, at least. And I think that there is a lot to like about this player. The player comparable that Prom input is Ricard Raquel. That's a nice player, and of course, projected probably more as a middle of the lineup guy. But boom or bust, I kind of like taking a shot at a guy like that at 20, especially with so many other great players that were taken off the board just before they got to that 21 for Montreal.
Yeah, that's right. And Kent Hughes talked about him and said, Hage, Doc, Suzuki, Newhook, they're going to have Owen Beck. They're going to have a lot of players who are going to be competing for that center position, and they feel that they wanted to build that spine down the center, and they feel pretty confident they have a really good group going forward.
So you talked about the story of Michael Hage, and we do have some audio from him, the situation with his father passing away and overcoming that. Let's hear from Michael Hage himself about his late father.
I mean, growing up as a kid, did everything for me, and I couldn't be happier, honestly. Grew up a Habs fan, both my parents from Montreal, and I mean, my dad would be so happy right now. It's a dream come true for me, honestly.
Yeah, he said that at some stage when his name was called, he felt like he blacked out. It was just a perfect situation for him, being himself, being a Habs fan, with him having so much family from Montreal. His grandparents living on Nuns Island, a place I know a little bit about, and just that connection. You could see he was another player just absolutely beaming at the podium.
Yeah, I love to see it too, and you can tell like there was definitely some emotional moments when he was talking about his father, but great story, and I think this is something where you want to root for the kid at the very least.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
The next bit of audio from Michael Hage, he's talking about what he will do to be a Canadian.
Continue working. I mean, everything's got to continue to get better. I mean, this is the team I dreamed of playing for as a kid, and I'm going to do everything I can to be as impactful as I possibly can be when I get there.
To not only make the team, but to be impactful when I get there. I really liked that phrase that he used.
Yeah, I like that as well. Next bit of audio from Michael Hage. He's talking about memories of watching the Canadiens.
I mean, as a young kid, I think back when they were making those big runs, I remember, always knowing when the Habs were playing, especially, when they were making those big runs. I remember being so pissed when, Carey got hurt in that New York series. And, I mean, more recent memories with my dad and my brother was, that run and when they came back from 3-1 down against the Leafs. And, I mean, scoring big goals in overtime, and Caulfield and Suzuki, finding a way back in that series. I remember jumping up and down in my house, and I mean, just a lot of special memories watching them.
For any Habs fan, he connected immediately with them, talking about Kreider and Price, how upset he was at that, talking about the Canadiens' playoff run, the 3-1. It was 3-1 with the Toronto Maple Leafs, those overtime wins, Carey being tremendous, Caulfield and Suzuki with the overtime goal. He's a Canadian through and through, and now he has an opportunity to wear the jersey. This you can understand why the Habs brass is excited and was excited that he was still on the board when they went to pick.
Yeah, you could tell though that these weren't like researched moments. These were just good memories he had too. So I like that from him. And just imagine being in his position where you're watching some of these players who are still on the team, by the way, and he might even end up playing with them pretty soon, and then just having that opportunity. So you love that for Michael Hage here. Super happy for him, and I'd like to see him play with both Suzuki and Caulfield if that opportunity ever comes up.
This is a kid who is one of the best skaters in the draft. He's skilled. He's a goal scorer. He's going to develop. He's got a couple of extra years going the college system. He's an exciting player to add to this mix that the Montreal Canadiens are building. We called this show Securing Firepower. That was a goal by Kent Hughes, and I think mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, still very raw with the skill. He's definitely going to be a bit more of a project and take a little longer before he comes to the Montreal organization. But like I keep saying, I love the swing here by Kent Hughes. And we do get a little bit of audio coming from Kent Hughes, but just some quick thoughts here on how you think Kent Hughes fared for these two picks. I know you sounded pretty excited about them at the very least.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The fact that Demidov, to get Demidov, they needed a bit of help or helps, as Marty Lapointe says, they need helps. But it happened, and they played their hand pretty well, I think, in order to do everything they could to make it happen. And if you look at the past couple of drafts, we kept expecting, we didn't expect them to make a pick at 26. They didn't, as it turned out, but to use that second first round pick, and they did use the second first round pick. It just happened to be 21. They had some things in the fire, absolutely. And there were I think they Kent Hughes said that they would have done things had the number 5 pick not panned out the way it did. So this was the first round of the draft, and that's what we're focused on here. It couldn't have played out any better for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we do have a bit of audio coming from Kent Hughes himself, and he's talking about how the draft played out to get Demidov.
This week or 2 weeks leading up to it, and particularly the last 4 days, was probably the busiest that we've been in terms of exploring what if this happens, what do we do here? If this happens, what do we do here? And at one point Marty looked at me and goes, "You got this all written down? Because it's getting complicated."
A spreadsheet.
Yeah. So if you're asking me of all the ways things could have played out today, this was option 1 for us, right? I would say it felt perfectly.
Felt perfectly. Option 1. They had multiple options. Thought out, gamed out, and we talked about that a few weeks back with Michael Agello. All of the playing out the scenarios. That's part of the game. Being ready for anything. And he said, Marty Lapointe said, I hope you're writing this down that these options aren't all in your head. We won't know what those other options were. Did it involve, if they missed out on Demidov, would it have meant that they made a trade with the Winnipeg Jets for Rutger McGroarty? That was out there that the Canadiens had made calls and were active on that file, but as it turned out, they didn't have to because the draft played out exactly as option 1. As they had mapped that out, and one of the things I thought was fascinating that Kent Hughes said, he was on Thursday. Jeff Gorton said, "Why didn't you go to meet Demidov at the Mini Florida Combine?" He said, "Well, I prefer." The guys who are on the file, Nick Bobrov and Marty Lapointe, I don't want to encroach on their territories. So, and he kind of just sloughed it off a little bit. Kent Hughes said last night, the reason they didn't go, the reason the two of them didn't go is they didn't want to tip their hand to other general managers that this was the guy that they wanted. And I thought, we've talked about leveraging the media by Kent Hughes. They're always thinking about that. Always, there's a big contingent. The message is going to get out if the Montreal media is there. Don't look at it as a negative. How can we use these folks? And we remember after the Combine, how many negative stories were there about Demidov and somebody, the reporters from The Athletic, and Radio Canada came back and said, boy, I think there's less of a chance that the Canadiens will take Demidov and more of a chance that they'll take Lindstrom. And there was all these negative reports. And then, Chris Peters and others said, I think somebody's feeding these. I think somebody who wants to take the player is stoking the fire here. And I think... Yeah, we don't know that came from the Canadiens, but they were managing this situation stealthily, putting out maybe some disinformation. We talked about that. I said last week that I had never seen in the lead up to a draft so much misinformation and disinformation. But they mission accomplished. Job well done. The team, the entire, Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes, and the scouting staff, they got exactly who they wanted.
Yeah, very well played from all of them, and a big congrats on pulling that off. Just before we head into the final break, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the experience at Vegas Sphere, not the Sphere, but Vegas Sphere. It was a spectacle. I think that for the most part, the NHL did their best putting this on. I think visually on TV, at least, it looked pretty cool. Not sure how that would have gone from within the building. Of course, they were utilizing even like the top parts of the sphere there too. If you wanted to see the list of the draft picks, you probably had to arch your neck up quite a bit in order to see all of that. And you mentioned too, maybe it looked like the floor was smaller than what we're used to, and it was a little bit more jam-packed. So jam-packed that it seemed like every time there was a special guest to announce one of these draft picks, they had to kind of walk out from the back out of nowhere, right? Yeah,
that's right. It was really tight for the draft tables, the team tables for the draft, and I know some teams have complained about that before, so. We know when Michael Agello was on saying that it wasn't a done deal. There was a bit of pushback on the fact that this was the last in-person draft. I know there's two schools of thought about that. Some talk about making Vegas permanent, and certainly the show was spectacular. The graphics were spectacular. This was the first sports league to use the facility for an event, and I think it came off pretty well. I don't know that the graphics necessarily translated that well on TV, but it was, and even the Vegas showgirls were there taking the jackets of the players. It was fascinating, and the NHL isn't much of a spectacle at times, but I think it was here. And as well, I think the first round played out. Remember last year, there wasn't much action. There were 5 trades completed during the first round this time. We've said before, the Ontario Hockey League is the #1 development league in the world. Played out again here, 9 players taken from the OHL, 5 players taken from the WHL. I think there's going to be some discussion after the draft that 0 players were taken from the Q. In the U.S., there was 3 NCAA players. There was 6 USHL players. Sometimes a league that's a little bit forgotten about. Now that includes the National Development Program in the States as well. So I think the very first round player from Norway. This was a fascinating draft, a fascinating location, and as far as the Canadiens, very successful. I think good grades for the NHL as well in managing this unique location for the draft.
You mentioned the Vegas showgirl, and I have to say, I love that Demidov didn't care for her very much. Just handed her the jacket, blew right by.
Yeah.
He had more important things
More
to
important
do.
things, yeah.
Yeah, but I like this attempt from the NHL and what they were trying to do there. I think good on them for putting that together. What I will say though is this was a very slow first round.
Yeah,
it took a lot longer than I seem to remember it normally taking. Like there were times where I'd walk away for like 5-10 minutes and maybe one pick would have happened. So it'd be nice to get to a spot where these happen a little bit more rapidly. Other than that, I do think I have to give Montreal an A+ and the NHL a solid B+ on this event.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll be keeping an eye on the discussion, the aftermath, to see whether there's any signals about where the draft is going to be next year.
So with that, we'll give you our Canadiens Connection question of the week. So we ask all of our listeners, what are your overall thoughts on the Canadiens' performance at this year's draft? We want to hear from you, and we'll give you a little break here to think about it. We'll take our final break and make sure that you're sticking around with us. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
The Canadiens Connection is proud to be a partner of Rocket Sports Media, digital media publishers of sports and entertainment websites. Their mission is to build a worldwide network of sports fans who are informed, engaged, entertained, and connected. Learn more about RSM, its team, and its portfolio of brands at rocketsportsmedia.com. I bet you enjoy sporting your best Habs jerseys, dressing up your kids and pets in the cutest Habs gear, and showing off your decked-out hockey cave or fanning. Well, don't just show your friends, show your Habs. The Rocket Sports Media team wants you to boast your finest pictures for our global network of Montreal Canadiens fans. Include the hashtag #ShowYourHabs when posting your fan photos on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Then log on to showyourhabs.com to see your entries, along with photos and posts from Habs fans all over the world. A proud member of the Rocket Sports Media Network. If you're a business owner looking for the perfect platform to reach a targeted audience of customers, Rocket Sports Media is the solution. Our global hockey community provides unmatched social media reach to an attentive demographic of sports and entertainment fans. We can provide visibility to your company, helping you to engage and leverage this prime group of potential clientele. In addition, we also offer sponsorship opportunities for fan events and featured areas of website content, giving you name and logo recognition. Visit rocketsportsmedia.com to contact us regarding this unique marketing opportunity. For the most trusted source of news, analysis, and features about the Montreal Canadiens, log in to thn.com/Montreal, your year-round source for anything Habs related. That's thn.com/Montreal.
Welcome back to episode 302 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. You can follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plus, you can check out the website canadiensconnection.fm. And feel free to text us anytime via the Rocket Sports text line. It's 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. And just looking at the Rocket Sports text line here, someone's actually figured out a name that you forgot earlier in this episode, Rick. So I'll let you share about that.
Yeah, it was Pete DeBoer. I love Pete DeBoer, and he was on. We were talking about the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup winners in the Hockey News NHL News section. I said that Paul Maurice was the second coach in NHL history to win their first 5 Game 7s. Pete DeBoer was the first, and in fact, Pete's got a record in Game 7s of 8-0. So, yeah, thanks for the help with a name that just escaped me there for a minute.
Absolutely. So the Montreal Canadiens have a lot going on. It's been a busy summer already with the draft. We've got plenty more coverage to get to. And here's what you need to know from Rocket Sports. We cover the Montreal Canadiens, and you can find all of that content at InsideTheCanadiens.com. You can find all of that coverage in one place. And if you're interested in some multimedia content, we are on YouTube as well. So make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel at All Habs, and you will find plenty of content on there. Every single Monday, we will put this podcast there, The Canadiens Connection. Last week's episode was entitled NHL Draft Expert Sam Cosentino's Bold First Round Predictions. You can go back and rewatch that video. You can check out all the content on there. And throughout the offseason, look out for the Rocket Hockey Report and the Habs Hockey Report from Amy Johnson, who does a fantastic job updating everyone on Laval Rocket and the Montreal Canadiens. So leave a like, leave a comment. We'd love to get into a discussion with you there in the comments, and make sure that you are subscribed. Also, you can tap that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any of our episodes. And you can also make sure that you're subscribed to the premier Rocket Sports Radio podcast on your favorite podcasting app, The Canadiens Connection. You can find every single episode at canadiensconnection.fm. We're here every single Saturday to bring you great Montreal Canadiens content, and we don't go away throughout the summer. We'll be here every single week. If you enjoy the show, we would really appreciate if you left us a 5-star review. And if you want to help us out just a little bit more, you can go ahead and share that podcast on X, Facebook, Reddit, or on any of your socials. We are your inside link to the Montreal Canadiens. And now it's time to get to our Canadiens Connection question of the week. Now that we have the draft over, we want to ask all of our listeners, what are your overall thoughts on the Canadiens' performance at this draft? We want to hear from you, and you can reach out to us. Rick, if people have a little bit more to say, can you let us know of the email that they can reach out to us by?
We have an email address. You can write to us directly at hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. That email address is hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
We get tons of text, tweets, comments, and emails throughout the week. And here's some reaction to last week's episode. Canadiens Connection episode 301, entitled Who Will the Habs Pick? Featuring Sportsnet's Sam Cosentino, reveals first-round draft pick predictions. And Rick, I'll let you take it away with this very first comment, I believe coming from YouTube.
This one comes from @GuyThibodeau4976. His pick would be Hage Iginla for Montreal 5th round pick, unless Demidov is available. Well, you got your wish. Demidov was available and the Canadiens got him. He says Iginla's not my choice, but with him being one of the youngest in the draft and him playing center, I think his ceiling is higher than people think. Very safe pick. Could bring you a solid NHL player for a long time. Did one better and got your first option there in Demidov. So thanks for that, Guy Thibodeau.
Coming from @BMXIX, what they have to say is, I'm going out on a limb here. Hughes will pass on a dynamic Russian forward to draft a D-man. History will repeat itself and Hughes will screw up again. Good news, BMXIX. That did not happen. They took the dynamic Russian forward, so I'm sure you're very happy about that today.
That's great. This one from our dear friend Center Heis 7948, who usually reaches out to us during the week. He says, I think that the talent level is so close they can kind of stick to their need, which for me is, number 1, Caden Lindstrom, 2, Demidov, 3, Seneca, Saleyev, then Iginla. Great show, guys, but that's the order that I'd go in. Listen, these are great. We've been telling you we're the source you can trust for the past 15 years, but we also want to share what you have to say. Great comments all week, and I'm sure there'll be more in reaction to the work that the Canadiens did here at the 2024 draft.
So coming up this week, and this show was so jam-packed, we haven't even had a chance to say Happy Canada Day to all those in Canada, all the Canadians around the world. Also looking forward to NHL Free Agent Frenzy coming up soon. Happy Independence Day to those south of the border in the USA. And wow, lots of stuff to look forward to. But Rick, I think it's time for a nap. That's going to be a wrap for us today. Thank you all for sticking around and listening to this. We appreciate if you would subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on your favorite podcasting apps. You can also share it on social media if you like what you heard. Enjoy the week. We'll be back here next Saturday, July the 6th for another great episode. Thank you for listening to Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Rocket Sports.